Hi everyone, I'm Philip Galinsky, founder and director of Samba New York, and today we're going to be continuing with our series of some basic patterns on some of the different samba percussion instruments. And in today's video, we're going to be focusing on this drum, the tambourine. If you don't know what the tambourine is, it's this drum here. It's a small frame drum from Brazil, very popular in the samba. The tambourine is, these days, typically 6 inches in diameter. It has a plastic head and a body that's made of metal, in this case aluminum or wood, okay? And typically the tambourine is played with a wooden stick or a plastic stick, and it can be played in both the carnival and non-carnival context, all right? So I'm going to be teaching you today two of what I would consider to be two of the most typical basic patterns for the tambourine, okay, in the samba. Now, these two basic patterns correspond to two of the three rhythmic levels in my rhythmic theory of samba, which I explain in another video on the channel called An Introduction to the Samba Rhythm. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I'd encourage you to check that out first and then come back to this video, all right? So, just as a review, the three prototypical rhythmic levels in samba, according to this theory, are the pulse level, the subdivision level, and the timeline level, okay? Now, as I explained in that video, there's an infinite number of possible samba rhythms, so these three rhythmic levels are not all of the rhythms in samba, of course. They're just sort of they define the structure of the rhythm, okay? In my opinion, all right? So let's start with the first basic pattern that I'm going to show you, which corresponds to the timeline level in the samba. What is a timeline? A timeline is a guide rhythm, okay? It's a rhythmic pattern that all the other patterns have to sync up to, all right? So the timeline in samba actually comes from the Congo-Angola region of Africa, all right? And in the samba world in Rio, it's known as Teleco-Teco. That's the name of the rhythm, Teleco-Teco, all right? So I'm going to teach you Teleco-Teco first on the tambourine, and then we'll get to the other basic pattern that I'll show you later, all right? So before we get into the rhythm, I want to show you how I hold the tambourine. I simply hold it like this, all right? And I've got my thumb over the top of it. Now, I'm showing you how I would play the tambourine in a non-carnival context, like in a small samba group outside of Carnival, like in a pagode or roda de samba context, all right? For starters, then I'll explain how I would play it in the context of a samba school or Carnival, all right? So, in a small group samba context, I hold the tambourine like this with my thumb over the top. I typically use a wooden stick, although sometimes you can use the plastic stick at times for, you know, in a small group samba context. I play the stick, I hold the stick like so with my thumb on top, like this, and I use wrist and fingers. I have a pretty loose grip on it, all right? And I strike the tambourine not dead center, but a little bit off center. Okay? So watch what happens if I play it in the center and off center. So the tone's a little richer off center, I find, but anyway, that's a personal preference thing, all right? So let me teach you the samba timeline or Teleco-Teco, all right? I'll teach it to you just clapping at first, all right? So here's a great mnemonic device that someone taught me once for Teleco-Teco, which is, I love samba, yes, I love samba. 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 Okay? So it's just a way to remember the rhythm, all right? Now, something important to consider is, first of all, how does this rhythm relate to the pulse level? Okay, because samba has obviously a regular pulse, typically, all right? Now, I count samba in 4, okay? 4-beat cycle. So here's how this relates to the 4-beat cycle. 1, 2, I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. Okay? So if you noticed the Teleco-Teco pattern, I start on beat 3 of the cycle. Why is that? Well, I don't want to get into too much detail now, but the basic answer is that in most samba songs, in my experience anyway, the samba timeline, or the one, let's say, is on the offbeat side of the timeline. The one is on the offbeat side of the timeline. So like this. I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Okay? So this is all theoretical. If you're not connecting it to a particular song, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But basically, you can play this rhythm along with a samba song, and you'll find that typically the melody of the samba will sync up very nicely with the timeline. Okay? So what does that mean? It means that there are a lot of notes in common between the vocal melody and the samba timeline, or Teleco-Teco. Okay? So, and in most samba songs, in my experience, as I said, the one is on the offbeat side, because there's an offbeat side and a downbeat side to the rhythm. So here's the offbeat side, I love samba, and here's the downbeat side, I love samba. So downbeat means it's right on the beat, offbeat means it's off the beat, obviously. It's not right on the beat. Okay? So now, there are some samba songs where the one of the rhythmic cycle is on the downbeat side or of the timeline, but in my experience, those tend to be more rare. Okay? All right, so now let's transfer this to the tambourine. So I'm gonna play without muting the drum in the back. So I'm just gonna be holding the drum like this and striking the drum here. I love samba, yes, I love samba. I love samba, yes, I love samba. Okay? So that's how I would play it. Now, if you want to get a little bit fancy on all the other subdivisions that you're not playing with the stick, you can play with a finger or maybe even 2 fingers to provide some extra rhythmic interest. Okay? And add a little more propulsion to the rhythm. So that would be I love samba, yes, I love samba. 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 Okay? One last thing before we move on to the next basic pattern. Now, as I said, if this is beat 3 in most sambas, how do we start the rhythm if we want to start it on 1? Well, we could start it right after the 1, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I love samba, I love samba, yes, I love samba, I love samba, yes. We could do that. We could play a note on the 1 the first time only, and then leave it out all the other times, like this. 3, 4. Or we can play what I would call an entrance pattern. So here's a very typical entrance pattern for Teleco-Teco, which is just 1 and 2 and. So just 8th notes on the 2 8th notes on beat 1, 2 8th notes on beat 2, and then we start the pattern on beat 3 and continue with the pattern. So that would be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Okay, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, and I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Yes, I love samba. I love samba. Okay, so let's move on now to the next basic pattern for the tambourine, for samba, okay? And this pattern corresponds to the subdivision level in my rhythmic theory, okay? The subdivision level is simply all 4 of the subdivisions per beat. So, takaraka, 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 ta. Okay, we can count them as 1 ienda, 2 ienda, 3 ienda, 4 ienda in English. But the actual sound of it is takaraka, 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 ta. Okay? Please refer to an introduction to the samba rhythm video where I talk a little bit about the swing in samba, and there's another video on the channel where I talk about the swing as it applies to the 3rd surdo, and I talk about the samba swing in general in that video. So check out those videos if you want to get a little deeper into the samba swing. But for now, I'm just going to show you one popular technique for playing these subdivisions on the tambourine. Now, just as the timeline, the samba timeline has a name in the samba world, Teleco-Teco, these subdivisions of the samba have a name as well. It's called Carreteiro. Carreteiro is like the trucker rhythm. You know, takaraka, 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 ta. Okay? So to play the trucker rhythm or the Carreteiro on the tambourine, there are actually quite a few different ways of playing the Carreteiro, all right? But I would say the older way of playing, the older technique for playing the Carreteiro is known as 3 and 1, because you play 3 strokes in the right hand and 1 turn with the left hand, right? Because if we're going to play 4 notes, 4 subdivisions per beat, that's quite difficult to do with 1 hand, right? You'd have to go. Okay? So as you get faster and faster and faster, that becomes very difficult. So the way to get the Carreteiro, or one way to get the Carreteiro, is to play, well, we're going to have to turn the tambourine at some point to get to get at least one of the extra notes. All right. So the 3 and 1 technique, as I said, is the older technique for playing the Carreteiro, and it's 3 strokes in the right hand and 1 turn in the left hand. So, but not in that order. It's going to be down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. Okay? So, first stroke is a downstroke. Second stroke is a downstroke, and as soon as I hit the tambourine, I'm going to turn it. I'm just rotating my forearm like that. Okay? I'm not bending my wrist. Okay? So I'm going down, down, and then I have to bring my stick up, and the tambourine's in the way, so that's the upstroke. Okay, and as soon as I hit the upstroke, I'm turning the tambourine back to position, and then I'm in position for another downstroke. So it's down, down, up, down, 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 up, down. Okay, let's do this a little faster. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down. Okay? Now, this is a challenging technique. So what I'd recommend that you do is to just break it up a little bit. So go down, down, up, down, down, rest. 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 When you have that down, you can go down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, rest. 2, 3, 4. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down. Down, down, up, down, 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 up, rest until you can finally go down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay? Now, the accents are going to be on the downbeat and also on the last subdivision of the beat. So the downbeat, I like to accent the strongest, and the last subdivision of the beat a little less strong. And then of course there's the swing. But for the swing, please refer to those other 2 videos I mentioned, all right? So we're gonna go loud, soft, soft, loud, loud. Loud, soft, soft, loud, loud. But the last loud there, which is on the downbeat, is louder than the note before it. So loud, soft, soft, loud, loud. Loud, soft, soft, loud, loud. The downbeat is the loudest. Loud, soft, soft, loud, loud. Okay? Now, let's move up the tempo a little bit. 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay? We can also play the Carreteiro with a plastic stick, as it's typically done in the context of Carnival, for example, in a Bateria of a Samba school or a bloco. Okay, now in the Carnival context, I would take my thumb and I would move it to the side, like so. Or you can hold the tambourine like this, or even like this. I actually prefer to hold the tambourine like this in a Bateria context, like this. Okay, and the reason why I take my thumb off is because you don't want to hit it with the plastic stick, it's going to hurt. All right, so let's do Carreteiro now with the plastic stick. All right, down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down. Rest. 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 A little faster. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there you have it. That'll be our video for today. Please note that when you're playing the Carreteiro on the tambourine with the plastic stick, you can also employ the use of rim shots, which is, a rim shot is hitting the head and the rim at the same time. It makes for a much louder sound. So you can experiment with that. You can experiment with playing all the notes as rim shots, or just the accents as rim shots, or all the notes on the head. Okay, there are a lot of possibilities. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in the next one.